Now, in today's episode, this is going to be sort of like a very quick talk about scale and design, and whenever you deal with graphics and the scale of them, right? And so here we have a container, and this was the very first sort of option that we did for the container itself, and we wanted to take a look at how the graphics were going to be on the container. Now, uh, mind you, this is like an actual container, like one of those big storage containers. So the scale of a person is about this big. It could be a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit bigger, but somewhere around here, right? So this is like a big asset, right? And so whenever you're dealing with big buildings or big things that are man-made, like architecture and stuff like that, and you have details or some sort of graphics like how we have here, you have to take in consideration the scale of a human in order to bring a correct scale to the object itself. And so what happens is that a lot of times, and this is a good example, where sometimes you make the graphics or the details too big for a person, and it tends to throw off a little bit the scale of the actual object, or sometimes it makes it, not in this particular case, but sometimes it makes the object look like a toy. And so we have to be careful with the scale of the details that we make. Now, not only just the scale, but also where are we putting them, and how we are distributing the areas of rest of detail, right, on the object against the areas of detail and rest, right? So we have to play one against each other. And so right now, all the details with the graphics are sort of like going in this sort of like direction where grab a sort of like going in sort of this direction like that, and it's sort of going all over the place here. And so one of the things that we tried is to sort of like organize it a little bit and sort of think about how we would do this in actual real life. And the stuff that we have here, if you see, zooming here a little bit, it's actually quite good, right? I really like the scale that is happening over here. So we're trying to bring some of this into this side of the container, and the ones up down here are, I think, are also working well. So this is working well as well. But this really big, I think, is something that we can maybe improve a little bit. And so I made three options. So this is one. We'll go through those. This is another one here, and this is another one here, right? And so every time I try to add details for something this big, right, I always try to have a ratio of detail, right? So let's say this is my object, right? I'm gonna try to have, if I have the object from here to here, all with detail, like all this detail, 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 very much detail, it's gonna look very busy. And so I always try to have a lower ratio of detail, high frequency detail, maybe to like a third of it. A lot of detail, a lot of detail, a lot of detail, a lot of detail. And then another maybe section of where I have some maybe like medium shapes or something a little bit more relaxed on the eye. And I can play, of course, with this ratios, right? Depending on the object. It's not like an exact formula. But what I'm trying to do is to bring a little bit of areas of rest with smaller frequency details in certain places, and then bring in some maybe some medium sort of size details. So you can see here that I'm using um, the plane of details that we had for just to have some medium shapes into it, and then using the decals as part of my high frequency details. And what this does is it sort of brings the scale a little bit closer to what it is, right? And it helps me control where those details are. And so we make these decisions to sort of play with the scale of the actual object, and also be mindful and deliberate about where we're actually putting the details and of the decals into to this particular object. And so again, this is going to be different for every single object that you're going to make, but I always like to make sure that I'm paying attention to the scale of the details that I'm putting on the object, and also how much of those details against the areas of rest in the object when I'm adding those details. Okay, so I hope that helps. It's again, it's a very quick video, but it is something that I always try to keep in mind as I'm designing things, and um, I always try to um, keep it in mind when doing this sort of man-made objects.